Beautiful songs today. Thank you, Leah, and our worship team. What a great video for our offering today, reversing our thinking and the way the Lord changes our life. Praise the Lord. We try to be very cautious about every aspect of our service, all pointing us towards the same picture and towards our scriptures for the day. There was a man named Jim who heard about a revival that was going on in town. And so he'd never been to this church before, so he decided he would go and he would check it out for the evening. So he drove up and he went inside, and the church was full. People were everywhere. The music was uplifting and upbeat, just really, really great worship. The pastor gave a fantastic message. And when it came to the end of the service, of course, the revival, you have just a huge altar call. And the invitation was the invitation of all invitations. And people just kept coming and coming, and he knew he needed to go down there. So he went down to the front, and he had to wait about 10 minutes before he could speak to the pastor because there was just so many people down there. And finally he gets to the pastor and he says, "Son, what can I pray for you about tonight?" And Jim said, "Well, Pastor, I need you to pray for my hearing." And immediately the pastor put his hand on his head and he put his hand on his ear. And he just began to pray heaven down and ask the Lord to heal this man right then and right there. And he prayed and he prayed and he prayed and he prayed. And finally he said, "Amen." He stepped back and he said, "Jim," he said, "tell me, how is your hearing now?" And the man said, "Well, I'm not sure because I'm not doing court till Wednesday." Different type of hearing. When I think about a courtroom and I think about a trial, my mind is taken back to 1992. Some of y'all were around during those days. And there was a movie that was very popular called A Few Good Men. And there was this trial scene during this movie where there's a lawyer and he's questioning an officer and he's asking him, "Did you give this order?" At first he says, "Do you want to know?" "Did you give this order?" "Do you want answers?" "Did you give this order?" "Do you want the truth?" And then the great quote and the phrase is, "You can't handle the truth." The reality of life is that sometimes the truth is very, very hard for us to handle. Because sometimes the truth is painful. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it makes us cry and it makes us shameful and it makes us suffer. And we've been looking at the truth of what happened to Jesus as he went to the cross and he paid the price for our sins. And so this morning we're going to look at the trial of Jesus. Matthew 27, we're going to be in verses 11 through 26. We're going to see three truths that provide for us some understanding about what it cost us to travel the resurrection road. And we're going to see why Jesus did not quit and why we should not either. Matthew 27, 11 through 26. Three truths today that we have to know about the trials that we face in this life. Number one, we have to understand the treacherous tongue. A few months back, Pastor John and myself and another fella from our church, we went over to a rent place to get some vans for our Disciple Now. And so Pastor John is very organized. He had spoke to them and made the reservations plenty of time in advance. Spoke to them the day before, make sure everything was ready. We had a 10 o'clock pickup time, and so we left here about 9 o'clock. We drove over there. And when we got to the rent car place, people was everywhere in there. It was just packed, tons and tons of folks. No problem. We have great patience like Job. So we wait in line, easy breezy. 15, 20 minutes later, John goes up to the front and he tells the reservation number and he starts filling things out. And they want to know, your insurance number and your driver's license, your blood type, hair sample, DNA. Do you like pizza with cheese or pepperoni? Do you like smooth or crunchy peanut butter? What size shoes do you wear? And they're going through all these things. They finally get all the paperwork filled out. She says, "Okay, I see that you're reserving 2 vans, but we can only do them one at a time because it has to be separate orders." "Okay, no problem. So let's finish this first van. I'll go get it. I'll meet y'all outside." So we finish paperwork. She goes and gets the van. We meet outside. We have to look it over. There's no broken glass, no dings in the van. Everything's fine. No big deal. She goes, "Okay, I'm going to go inside and get started on paperwork for the second van. Y'all just wait out here. I'll be out in a few minutes." No problem. Easy breezy. So we stand outside. 5 minutes turns to 10. 10 turns to 15. 15 turns to what feels like 7 hours. And finally, she comes back outside. I said, hey, listen, glad you came out. We were thinking you forgot about us. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm no longer on your reservation. You'll have to talk to my manager from now on. It's all right. Peace in the valley. No big deal. This is easy breezy. Where's your manager? She's inside. She'll be out here in a minute. Okay, that's fine. So we wait. I still have peace in the valley, but it has like a little bitty leak in my creek. So manager comes out and says, hello, our lady told us that, she can't help us anymore, that you're now in charge of our case. Can we please have our second van so we can leave? Well, sir, I'm sorry, but we've had a mix-up. I'm not sure I've ever heard a manager tell me that they've had a mix-up, and that's a good thing. We've had a mix-up, and we were supposed to give y'all a couple of 2012 vans, and we're giving y'all 2019 vans, for free. It's never something like that. I say, mix-up. I said, okay. And she goes, we've had a lot of people call in sick today, and we've had some changing around, and different things have happened. And so here's the situation, okay? Good news, bad news. We only have one van here right now. But I can have your second van here in like 2 hours, or you can drive 10 or 15 miles down the road and get one from this other place. Peace in the valley. It's okay. I am a C. I am a CH, right? I am a CHRISTIN. I have JUSSMHERT, and I will LOVETRNLY. Okay, this is going to be all right, no problem. But you know how the adrenaline just starts pumping right in your stomach? And you can feel it building up, and you start getting a little shaky. And we've been there for like 2 hours, okay? And I'm usually very calm, and I'm very peaceful. And so this is what I like to think about my attitude. Isn't that wonderful? Folks, this is peace in the valley. A river runs through it, cold, brisk, clear mountain air. Wonderful. But when that adrenaline just kind of starts to build up and you begin to feel the frustration upon yourself and you don't want to explode, but you can feel it coming, and all of a sudden you go from this to this. Like that. And so she comes back out after like 2 more hours. And I said, ma'am, I need to explain to you my frustration in this situation. And I wasn't yelling, I wasn't screaming, but I was very firm in what I had to say. And it started off with, I'm really sorry that you've had a bad day. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but I don't care who didn't show up. Wouldn't the first thing you do to make sure that you have the vehicles that you're supposed to have for the people supposed to be picking them up? Ma'am, I'm so sorry that people are sick and that you've had a rough day. And then somehow it started off that, but it ended up being, but we've been here for 3 hours to pick up the 2 vans that you told us yesterday that you had here on the premises. And now you want us to wait 2 more hours, or you want us to drive 15 miles down the road on a field trip to pick up the vans you were supposed to have here in this place. So what I need to know is what you're going to do to make this right so that I don't leave here with a bad taste in my mouth and we don't go back to the church to have a prayer meeting that the Lord sends fire from the sky and burns this place to the ground. I didn't say all those things, but I was thinking a lot of those things. So we got in the van, we drove down the road, we picked up the other one, and she compensated us financially. She knocked a day off of our rental. But I was so frustrated. Boy, that can happen just so quickly. I'm reminded of the treacherous tongue. Maybe this doesn't happen to you, but in my life, many times I say things, and then I wished I wouldn't have said that. Or there's other times that I don't say anything, and I wish that I would have said something. Jesus has had the Last Supper with his disciples. He's gone to the garden to pray. He's been arrested, and now he's going to be questioned by Pilate. I wonder what he will say. Matthew 27, verse 11. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You have said so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. So he stands before the governor, and according to Luke 23, he's charged with 3 crimes, 3 things that Jesus did. Luke 23, verse 2. Then the whole company of them arose, and they brought him before Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, number 1, we found this man misleading our nation. Number 2, forbidding us to give to the tribute to Caesar. And number 3, and saying that he himself is Christ, a king. According to the ESV commentary, the only one of these that really holds weight, the only accusation that would really matter, that would warrant the death penalty under Roman rule, was his claim to be king, because that challenges the power and the rule of Caesar, and that is a no, you do not do that. So Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? He doesn't care about these other things. Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answers, you have said so, which means it is as you say. That is a Greek expression that deflects responsibility upon the one asking the question. And then after that, it says Jesus had nothing more to say. When the high priest and the others questioned, he was silent. Traditionally, this is what it would look like when you would stand before the governor. First, he would hear the charges that were being brought against the person. Then he would question the defendant. Then he would listen to their defense. Then he would retire with his advisors, and they would speak about it and discuss it. Then he would come out and make a judgment. Yet here we see Christ being questioned first, and then he gives his answer. And then here's Pilate's response, verse 13. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Do you not hear the things that are being said about you? Do you not hear these testimonies about your crimes? And yet you say nothing in your defense. And Christ was silent. And Pilate was amazed. That means he wondered, he admired, and he was awestruck. So we want to set this scene and make sure what this looks like. Jesus Christ, the only human being to ever live and walk in absolute perfection. No sin, no evil thought, no impurities, nothing but complete righteousness, fully God but fully man, has now been arrested. He is being tried for crimes that he did not commit. And when the governor comes before him and says, there are all these people who are speaking all these claims against you, and they're saying all these things that you have done wrong, and yet your answer is to be silent. And usually silence means guilty. Well, if you have nothing to say, then I guess that you are guilty, because there's nothing within our DNA that pushes us to be silent when we are being accused. Let me give you some examples. Kiddos, let's say tomorrow you go to school. You get through with lunch, you get back to the classroom. The teacher calls you up to their desk and they say, I know what you did at lunch today. And even if you didn't do anything, immediately you're thinking, oh, this is bad. This sounds really bad. And the teacher says, the other kids at your table told me what you did. They told me that you went around the table, that you stole all of their cookies, and then you made them eat their vegetables. How dare you do that? How many kids would just sit there and remain in silence? None. Even if you did it, you wouldn't stay in silence. You'd be like, that wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do that. They are lying to you. They are not telling the truth, because we want to defend ourselves. Teenagers, tomorrow, let's say you go to school, and for some reason you have a group of teachers that are just out to get you. Maybe it's because you are so handsome or so beautiful and so well dressed, they think that you just need a life lesson. And so they decide to come up with this plan to go to the principal and tell him that you have cheated on every test that you have taken in every class this year. So they go to the principal, they tell him this plan, and the principal calls you in the office and says, hey, listen, all your teachers got together, and they told me what you've done. You've been cheating on all your tests. How many of you would just remain silent? None. I didn't cheat on any test. I don't ever cheat on a test. I don't even know how to cheat on a test. If I was going to cheat on a test, I wouldn't have got 85. I'd have got 100. And you would start to defend, and you would try to make your case. Adults, let's say you go to work tomorrow, and last week you decided it was a good idea to boil cabbage in the lunchroom at work. And so all your friends are mad and they are upset. And so they've decided they are going to get you fired. And so they go and steal some money from petty cash. They stick it in your drawer. And then they go and tell the boss that you are stealing money from the company. And the boss calls you and says, I know what you've been doing, because I found the cash in your drawer. How many of you would just remain silent? None that I know of. let's say this morning you didn't make it to Bible study, and it was your day to bring donuts and breakfast tacos to the 8 o'clock hour. And so your class is mad, okay? They was hungry, and you were not there for them. So as soon as they get out of class, they say, listen, we're going to teach them a lesson. And they go around to everybody they can find in the church, and they just say, hey, listen, did you notice that Bill wasn't in life group this morning? Yeah, I noticed that. Hope he's not sick. No, Bill's not sick. I know where he was last night. Do tell. Well, no, don't tell anybody else. But the reason Bill wasn't here today was because he stayed out all night long doing two things. Do tell. He was playing bingo and dancing the Macarena. All night long. There may have been a Cupid shuffle in there somewhere. Dancing and bingo all night long. And so we bring Bill before the church, say, Bill, we know why you weren't here this morning. We know why you didn't bring donuts and kolaches and soft tacos. And it's because you was Macarena and Cupid shuffling and playing bingo all night long. What do you have to say for yourself? Who would remain silent? Lord, that was not me. I don't play bingo and I don't know how to do the Macarena. I don't even know what the Cupid shuffle is, because when we get accused of something, even if it's partially true, but especially when it's totally false, we defend ourselves. Because we don't want to be punished. We don't want to be down upon. We don't want to get caught. We don't want to be fired. We don't want to go to the principal's office. We don't want to get kicked out of school. We certainly don't want the rest of the church thinking that we are bingo playing Macarena dancers. And so we use our tongues and we defend ourselves. But Jesus remained absolutely silent. See, we try to defend ourselves because we want to get out of the punishment or the cost. We set the story straight, but Jesus didn't want to be set free. He wanted to set us free, which means that he had to be condemned for a guilt that was not his own. It was our guilt, our sin, our lies, our faults that he paid the price for. So we must be well aware of the treacherous tongue. Because if we walk the resurrection road, there's going to be many times that God will call us to speak. But there's other times that God's going to call us just to be silent. There will be moments when he wants us to speak harsh truth with love. There will be other moments when he just wants us to tell the hard truth. There will be moments when everything within us wants to defend. But then other times when God just wants us to let him be our defender. Christ stood before the governor and he took the guilt of the world. He didn't say a word. Well, that was different because that was Jesus. He was fully God. He probably didn't even want to say anything. I've never met a person in this life who didn't want to speak up when they were accused of something they did not do. And being fully human, Jesus was able to do that because he knew how to control his tongue. And so we must be able to do that as well. Number two, we see the trembling trance. Have you ever seen something, and after you watched it, you think to yourself, what exactly did I just see? Or could that have really just happened, or maybe I misunderstood? There's a very popular video this week on social media. We don't need any volume on it, but I want you to watch this video and see if you catch what happens here. Okay, now some of you are laughing, some of you are going, I don't get it. Let's watch it again. Some of you are laughing, going, oh, okay, but some of you are going, what's the big deal? I don't see. Taste the soup. Oh, it needs some more. Taste the same soup. Oh, I need some more. Taste the same soup. I need some more. Lord, have mercy. How'd she know if it changed or not? And so when I saw that, I thought, it's like she's in a trance. Taste the soup, needs more salt. Taste the soup, needs more salt. Taste the soup, needs more salt. How do you know it needs more salt? Doesn't matter. Taste the soup, eat more salt. Sometimes we see people in this life and they're absolutely in a trance where they don't even see or know what's going on around them. During the trial of Christ, we are warned about a sinful trance that we fall into when our sinful desires blind us from the truth. Verse 15. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. And they then had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" So during political times, not only then, but even now, politicians and governors, rulers were always looking for ways to find the favor of the people. And so this is one of the ways they would do that. They would gather them together and say, "Listen, I'm going to release a prisoner to you. Power to the people. You get to vote. You get to choose. Who do you want to be released?" So he gives them the choice. Would you like it to be Barabbas, or would you like it to be Christ? Barabbas was a notorious criminal, a robber, an insurrectionist. He was a murderer. Why would he even give them the choice of somebody like Barabbas or Jesus? Verse 18. For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." So Pilate was a smart man. He knew that Jesus was absolutely no threat to the Roman rule. But these high priests and these Pharisees, this council, they were afraid of Jesus because of his influence and because of his power. And so they wanted him to do something to Jesus, and yet he couldn't see anything that Jesus had done wrong. So he comes up with this great plan. Okay, the people love it when we release a prisoner to them. So this is what I'm going to do, because I'm tired of messing with this Jesus guy. And my wife had this dream. She says, I need to have nothing to do with what's going to happen to him. So I'll just give the people of choice. I'll just say, listen, you can either have Jesus the Christ released, or you can have Barabbas. Barabbas is a notorious criminal. He is a murderer. He is a terrible, terrible person. He might kill somebody in the crowd as soon as we let him go. I know they don't like this Jesus guy, but surely there is no parallel universe in this world where they would choose to release this heinous criminal Barabbas over this innocent man, Jesus. Verse 20. Now the chief priests and the elders, they persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to destroy Jesus. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" And they all said, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But then they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." The chief priests, they used their influence and their authority, and they go around to the crowd and they begin to tell them, "You must ask for Barabbas to be released. You have no idea who this Jesus is. He is the worst of the worst. He will do things to us and against us that you cannot even imagine. You must ask for Barabbas." So Pilate says, "Who will you choose, Barabbas or Christ?" They say, "Give us Barabbas." He says, "What? You really want Barabbas?" "Yes." "Well, then what am I supposed to do with Jesus?" And they say, "Crucify him." "Why? What evil has he done?" And they say, "Let him be crucified." What I see is a group of people so consumed by their hatred for Christ that they refused to see the truth that he was the Son of God, who had not come to fool them, but had come to save them. He was not their enemy. He was their friend, but in their minds they only knew that he was wrong and they were right, and therefore he had to die. So when they were faced with a choice that would be obvious to anybody, Barabbas or Jesus, they chose wrong because their sinfulness and their hatred had led them to a trance. And this trance didn't just stop with them. It led them to infect every single person that they could find around them to join them on this crusade to crucify Jesus. And we see the same type of sinful trance in the world today. This is what it looks like. Have you ever had a friend or a family member, maybe it's a neighbor or a co-worker, and they take a long leap off of a very, very, very deep end. And all of a sudden, this person that you knew so well starts to do things that you never would have thought they would do. And they start to say things that you never believed that they would say. And they begin to act in ways that you never would have guessed that they would act. And when you try to talk to them about it, it's almost like they're in a trance, because their mind is so made up and they will not change. You see, that's the power of sin and of selfishness, of hatred and guilt and fear and regret and hurt, loss and evil. When we allow ourselves to be so devoted to destruction that we don't care who we hurt or what it costs. And the more people we can drag down with us, the better. Because misery loves company, and so does sin. The crowd shows us just how easily we can slip into a trembling trance, fighting the Savior who loves us, condemning the innocent, and demanding injustice for the righteous. Therefore, if we're going to walk this resurrection road, we have to stay focused on the cross so that we do not become hypnotized by the world. Number 3, we see the truthful transparency, verse 24. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and he washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves. Pilate saw, my plan's not going to work. They're not going to pick Jesus. They're going to pick Barabbas. I never thought that would have happened. They will not be silenced, and now they're going to have a riot. So he takes water and he washes his hands, a custom of the same Jewish people that he despised. He says, I am innocent of this man's blood. And what he's saying is, I find no guilt in him. I see no reason why this man should be crucified. There are no grounds here. His job was to investigate the charges, try the accused, render a verdict, and ensure justice was done. So to him, he thought, well, I'm washing my hands of this. I'll have nothing to do with this anymore, as though he was guilty. He was guilt-free. Verse 25. And all the people answered, his blood be on us and on our children. And then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, having him beaten and whipped, he delivered him to be crucified. 3 things he did. He washes his hands, and he declares this man does not deserve to die. He tells them he is innocent. He offers to punish and then to release him. And when he does not accept the responsibility of Jesus' death, the crowd says, we will take that upon ourselves and upon our children. I don't see this as a sign to where it talks about generational sins, where the sins of the father will be passed on to the sins of the son. Deuteronomy 24:16 says, fathers shall not be put to death because of their children, nor shall children be put to death because of their fathers. Each one shall be put to death for his own sin. Instead, what it means is that the people who were there were absolutely willing to let the innocent blood of Jesus Christ be on their hands and on their children's heads, and they would take responsibility for it because they believed that they were so right when they were absolutely wrong. They were willing to let the guilt of their choices be upon their children, their children's children. That makes me think about my own life and maybe the decisions that I make, the things that I believe, the way that I live, and the legacy that I want to leave. I would never want anything to negatively affect the lives of my children or of my grandchildren, not only physically in this world, but especially spiritually in their walk and in their eternity. So that causes me to be transparent, so that I know that every decision that I make and every thought that I have and every action in my life is never blinded by sinful selfishness or ignorance, but solely based on the grace of the cross and what Jesus did for me. When I think about Pilate, there's some who would say, well, Pilate didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't him that crucified Jesus, but that certainly doesn't mean he did anything right. Too often we think if we are not a part of the crime, then we are innocent. But if we are aware of the crime that is going on and we don't do anything about it, does that mean that we're not guilty? And maybe that's where you're at in your life. Maybe you're a part of something right now where you are causing sin or harm in someone else's life. And it's time for you to stop that. Or maybe you're in a place to where you know about something that is going on, and you think that you can just cover your eyes and pretend like it's not happening when God's calling you to take a stand for the truth and to do something about it. Or maybe you feel like Pilate and you're ready just to wash your hands and say, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. I have no more time and no more patience and no more peace and no more love and no more conviction. I'm done. I've given too much. I've cared too much. I've prayed too much. I've loved too much and I've hurt too much. And maybe today the Lord would tell you, don't give up. Because he didn't give up. And he certainly hasn't given up on you. Former First Lady Barbara Bush passed away this week at 92 years of age. And there was a love letter that was widely publicized that former President Bush, he wrote her just after they were engaged. And this is one little snippet from that letter. I love you, precious. with all my heart. And to know that you love me means my life. How often I had thought about the immeasurable joy that will be ours someday. How lucky our children will be to have a mother like you. He wrote that to her in 1943. They were married in 1945. And after 73 years of marriage, she passed this week. Can you imagine how much their love grew if he loved her that much 75 years ago? And after all those years together, in our walk with Christ, we are called to grow in our love for him day by day, month by month, and year by year. And if we follow him down the resurrection road, that love will show us the danger of the treacherous tongue, so we learn when to speak and when to be silent. That love will keep us from a trembling stance so that we are not walking blindly and are not lost in this world, but instead we walk with purpose and with intention. And it will reveal to us a truthful transparency that as we endure the trials of this life, what are we willing to walk through? What risks are we willing to take? What mountains will we climb? What pains will we endure and what paths will we follow to show our Savior just how much that we love him?